The Terps got absolutely exposed against Indiana.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day, and also video publisher on Inside Black and Gold. So make sure you guys go over to Inside Black and Gold on their website for all the latest Terps news. And of course, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Terps got absolutely exposed on Saturday against Indiana. It didn't look pretty. It wasn't great. And I have a couple of takeaways from this game that say Maryland got absolutely exposed and things don't look great for the Terps. I think before the season started, a lot of people kind of had in mind that we were a team that was going to naturally regress. We were going to be a team that wasn't going to get better. We were going to be a team that we lost Talia. We lost some other talented guys, but a lot of people thought the loss of Talia, Coach Loxley, and the Terps aren't going to be the same as they have been. And to be completely honest, after the first couple of games of the season, I thought we could be a similar team than what we have been. I thought that we could be an 8-win team about. I thought that Billy Edwards had figured it out. I thought that a lot of things for the Maryland Terrapins were going still in the right direction. But after losing this game to Indiana on the road, and we didn't get absolutely crushed. We were in the game for a lot of the game until we got to about the fourth quarter, and they started to kind of separate. But we were in a lot of the game. But Terps lost 42-28 to Indiana on the road to Hoosiers team that's good. Like, they're ranked now in the top 25, 23rd ranked team. They're 5-0. They've had a really strong start to the season. They have a lot of excitement surrounding their program. That is a good football program over there. I know we're not always used to Indiana having the best football. We've a lot of time thought of them as more of a basketball school or whatever. But that team was good on Saturday, and that was a team that would be really hard to go on the road and beat. And that's just the way it is. With the current landscape, the current roster that we have, and the current talent that we have, it'd be a really hard team to go out there and beat. They did some things that now I look at the Maryland Terrapins team and I say, we got exposed on Saturday. We've got problems, and a lot of them. And I don't feel good. I don't feel good about where we are as a program. This was supposed to be the first 5 or 6 games were supposed to be the easiest part of our schedule. I said before the season, Maryland could start the season 5-0, 5-1. I thought we had a really good chance at doing that. But now we're sitting here at 3-2. It was the first 6 games. Next week we play Northwestern on a Friday. The first 6 games were supposed to be some of the easier set of games that Maryland has for the rest of the season. And the fact that we've started 3-2 and 2 of our losses come to 2 Big Ten teams, and now we're sitting at 0-2. And this is different than the Michigan State game. I felt still pretty good about our football team after the Michigan State game. Now I don't feel good. I don't have the same energy. I don't have the same kind of outlook for the season. We're going to have to battle to get to a bowl game. I don't know if we can make it to a bowl game. We're going to have to put a lot of wins together later on in the season because we haven't even gotten to our toughest part of our schedule. That's still coming up, but we still have USC. We still have Oregon. We still have Penn State. We still have a good Rutgers team, a good Iowa team. We still have Northwestern and Minnesota as well, 2 teams that aren't complete slouches that you can lose to if you don't play well. And so I'm kind of like, wow, this team is going to have to fight to get a bowl game. But what I watched on Saturday was an Indiana Hoosiers team that absolutely exposed us. The first thing I've got to talk about the defense, and it feels like it's already kind of out there that the defense isn't great right now for Maryland football. I don't think there's any other way that you can kind of shape it. I don't think there's any other way you can kind of go about it. The defense isn't good right now. Starting off, let's start off up front. Starting up front, where we were supposed to be the strength of our team, it's just like there's not a lot going on. Like they haven't been terrible, but they weren't that good on Saturday. They weren't that good. They didn't make enough game-changing plays. And I said it, we're going to have to get to the Indiana quarterback because our secondary ain't holding up. And they were able to rush the ball for us and throw the ball on us. They rushed for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry. And Maryland only was credited with 1 sack, which came in the in the first quarter. So I look at it and I say, Maryland's defensive line didn't look good. Kind of looked like it got exposed to an Indiana offensive line that's been really good this year. I thought the Terps kind of got exposed on Saturday in terms of up front. They were able to rush the ball on us. We didn't get a lot of pass rush, which we already know our secondary has already gotten exposed, but Indiana made it look pretty horrible, I would say. They were able to kind of do what they want against the secondary. So once again, Maryland's secondary gets exposed pretty badly, I would argue, on Saturday. It's been the one really bad spot of our football team so far. Curtis Rourke made it look pretty bad. He made it look what it's like. It's exactly how it's been, and that's been bad. They threw for 359 and 3 touchdowns with 66% completion, and that's the thing that's kind of scary about it is there were throws out there that they kind of left out that were still to be had, and they still were able to throw for 359 on us. It's not like he just completed 75% of his throws. Like there were still throws out there to be had, and it's just they're giving up way too many explosive plays. It's just not good enough. The only really bright spot I can say is that we're turning them over. Maryland had 2 turnovers. The secondary has been creating turnovers, but the fact that we win the turnover battle 4-0 is another way that we just got exposed. When you win the turnover battle, when you turn over a team 4 times, and you don't turn over the ball and you still lose the game by 2 touchdowns, that is about as bad as a sign as you can get that you just lost to a much better football team. And I'm still not convinced that Indiana is a much better football team, but they're a better football team right now. And the fact that they turn over the ball 4 times and still beat the Terps, that's something that is concerning. That is something that is not good. That is something that just doesn't happen very much. You would think if you would have told me Maryland wins the turnover battle 4-0 going into the game, I'm thinking we walk away out of Indiana. We win by 20 points. I would think we beat them pretty good. Maybe we beat them by 14 like they beat us. But the fact that we turn over them, we forced 4 turnovers. I can't even get excited about the turnovers we forced because we lost the game by 14. That's a sign that maybe out of everything I'm most concerned about, the fact that we were able to create a ton of turnovers and still lose that game. That's a sign of not a great football team. That's usually what not great football teams do, is turn over a team a lot and still lose the game. I also thought our offensive line played pretty bad. A lot of penalties. I thought they looked pretty bad. They looked like the offensive line that I thought going into the season could be not great. Just one too many penalties, too many sacks, which are partly definitely Billy Edwards' fault a little bit, but the line did not look good. I think the number one thing was penalties. Outside of the penalties, they weren't like horrible, but the fact that they had so many penalties really hurt us overall. And I think that's something to continue to be concerned about overall. And so I think they exposed us in many different ways. I think they exposed Coach Loxley a little bit. They exposed our defense for sure. Our defense is just getting eaten up. They were able to do really anything they want. And it didn't really ever feel like we were going to stop them. It felt like more like, oh, if we're going to stop them, it's because they're gonna throw a pick or they're gonna fumble. It never felt like if we just play them down to down and nothing weird happens, we're going to stop them. And that's something that concerns me a lot. But we got absolutely exposed on Saturday. Our secondary exposed again. Our defensive line unit doesn't look good. Our offensive line doesn't look great. And Billy Edwards kind of got exposed a little bit too. His stat line doesn't look bad, but when I look at Billy Edwards and his performance, I thought he got exposed. I'll talk about more on Billy Edwards and what I thought about his performance because you can take away a couple different things. I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And of course, there's a Monday night football game. There's actually two games tonight. And if you want to bet the Lions versus Seahawks game where the Lions are favored by 4 points, or if you want to bet on the Dolphins, a Titans game, the Dolphins are favored by 2.5. You can do that on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. So Billy Edwards' performance on Saturday was very up and down, but that won't be good enough for the Terps to win football games this season. When you actually look at the stat line, it doesn't look like Billy Edwards honestly played that badly. He went 26 of 41, 280 touchdowns. And I have a couple of different points when I say this. Billy Edwards wasn't good enough on Saturday. I want to start by saying that. He missed way too many throws that he just has to make. I didn't think he was horrible, but I just thought that he missed a lot of throws. And when I think about his performance, I probably rated about a B minus to C plus, like somewhere in that range, like somewhere where it's like, okay, you did some good things, but there was a lot of things you could have worked on. I mean, for one, he didn't turn over the ball. So you would think he doesn't turn over the ball, and you would think Indiana turnovers the ball 4 times. You would think Maryland wins the game, but that didn't happen. But I think the thing that was concerning is he missed way too many throws. And this was my concern about Billy Edwards coming into the season, that he's kind of quieted those concerns a little bit. He's kind of hushed them a little bit. It's been about the accuracy. And before the season, I didn't think he was that accurate of a thrower. I didn't feel like on a consistent throw-to-throw basis, he was good enough to win a lot of games in the Big Ten or to be what we have been with Talia. I didn't think he was good enough. I didn't think his arm was accurate enough. I didn't think he had enough control of the arm. He has plenty of arm strength, but this season he's been pretty good in terms of accuracy. He's completed a really high percentage of his throws. When you look in the Big Ten, he was near the top with completion percentage. He was at the top in passing yards, but it's also because we throw the ball a ton. But the fact that we were leading the Big Ten in attempts and he was still pretty high up there in terms of completion percentage was definitely a good thing to see. But I think that I saw the Virginia game and I was like, oh, there's a couple of throws here where it's like we really want him to make that throw. That can be the difference. Maybe not in this game against Virginia, but down the line, that could be the difference. And there were a couple of those that he didn't make on Saturday that we probably wanted him to make. And so that could have made a difference in the ballgame. There was definitely a lot of those. I mean, you guys saw the game. It just felt like there was throws that just got away that he just didn't make. But I have to say, at the end of the day, it wasn't like he played horrible. When he doesn't turn over the ball and he still throws for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns, I can't sit here and be like, yeah, Billy Edwards looked horrible, because he didn't. And a part of the tough part about it was that Ty Felton and Caden Prather both got banged up at the end of the game, and he had to rely on other guys. Like Ty Felton was out for a good quarter, and so he had to rely on other younger guys that I don't think we expected or we didn't expect to have to rely on. So that's something that is definitely a bright spot, I would say. The fact that he was still able to start connecting with some of these guys that he probably doesn't work with at practice as much, that he doesn't throw to as much. And I thought that was important for Billy Edwards to be able to do. And hopefully Felton and Prather are good and we get them back because we're going to need them. But he also threw some really nice balls, like had a really nice touchdown pass to Caden Prather. Had some really nice throws in there as well. Used Roman Hemby in the receiving game too, which was important. But I just think overall there's some things that he wasn't able to do that really put us behind, where it felt like we were already playing catch up against this Indiana team. It felt like from the jump, when they scored, it felt like we were starting to play catch up, and that we had to figure out a way to get back in the game, get back in the game, get back in the game, which isn't an easy thing to do against a team like Indiana, where they're running the ball well, they're throwing against our really bad secondary right now. So I gotta say that he wasn't put in the best position to win that game. I thought the offensive line was interesting. I have to go back and watch the tape to really be like, was Billy Edwards throwing the ball? I mean, was Billy Edwards holding onto the ball too long, or was it the offensive line not giving him enough time? Was it that combination, or were the receivers not getting open down the field? But he was holding on to the ball way too long. I think you guys all would agree with me that he was just holding it on for just a really long time. And I don't know if it was covered sacks or exactly what it was, but he got sacked 5 times. So our offensive line may have looked worse than it actually was. Like sometimes sacks are not blamed on the O-line and they're blamed on the quarterbacks. I don't know if he didn't feel confidence in his arm or there were tighter windows where he wasn't used to throwing, and he's used to throwing wide open balls to Ty Felton for most of the season. But that's sometimes what quarterbacks have to do. Sometimes you got to make some NFL throws where they always talk about in the NFL. It's tighter windows, a lot harder to fit in there. It's different than college football, but sometimes college football has some NFL throws that you got to make if you want your team to win. And so he wasn't the reason we lost this game. I really believe that he wasn't the reason. And if this is a bad performance from Billy Edwards, like if this is what his bad performance is, the type of bad, if like when he has a bad game, it's like this, then I can't be too upset. And it's like, it's his first year as a starter. He was due for a bad game. I talked about it. I was hoping that they would get his legs going a little bit to help him not regress. But I said it before the game. I said there's a good chance that Billy Edwards regresses in this game against Indiana. It's on the road. It's a little bit rainy. It's the best defense we've played. I thought there's a really good opportunity that he regresses. And so if this is a bad performance from him, if this is what his bad game looks like, where he throws no picks, 3 interceptions, or no, excuse me, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a good amount of yards, then we're gonna have to figure out ways to win. We're gonna have to figure out ways to win with that. Because if that's a poor performance from him, then we're gonna be okay at the end of the day. But there's still too many throws that he missed that he should have made. But overall, I don't feel horrible about how he played. I thought he definitely got exposed a little bit in that he played decent ball, but I thought that there were some things that definitely concerned, just him holding onto the ball way too long, him being a little bit inaccurate. But on the road against Indiana, your biggest test of the year, I didn't think it was terrible. Who stood out? Who actually looked good for the Terps? There wasn't a ton of it, but there was definitely some guys that stepped up. I'll talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of an event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So there were some standouts on Saturday. I do want to make sure I give some of those guys credit because there were some guys that stepped up and tried to keep us in the game, even though the loss. One was Roman Hemby. Roman Hemby was definitely my MVP of that game. I felt like he had his best game in a while, and we were screaming for it. I wasn't sure when it was going to come, but I thought on Saturday, Roman Hemby looked really good. He looked again like our best running back on our team. Where in the past he'd been kind of slowly on a downward trajectory. I've been talking about Nolan Ray. I was chasing Roman Hemby, and Coley McDonald had been more productive. But on Saturday, Roman Hemby really got his stats back to where they needed to be, and surpassed expectations against Indiana. I hadn't seen him play that well in a long time. Definitely not this season. Like he's been just on kind of a downward slope, but he only got 10 carries, but he had 117. A lot of that came on that one rush where it's kind of a weird kind of long because the ref did kind of get in the way. I don't know if the guy makes the tackle, but still a really good game for sure from Roman Hemby. I think what was also exciting was he helped out in the passing game. 5 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown in the passing game. That's pretty big. So he had 2 touchdowns on the game, averaged 11.7 yards per carry. Of course, a lot of that comes on that one, but those game-changing carries really help us. And so I honestly thought he played at a really high level for the Terps and did some really good things where the rest of the backfield was not as good. Nolan Ray, 5 carries, 15 yards. Colby, 15 carries, 14 yards. So the guys that have been out producing Roman Hemby didn't this week. And so I thought Roman Hemby looked good. I thought he looked good rushing the football and receiving the football. So really good. Props to him for stepping it up. He definitely showed that he's definitely the number one. And then I thought that Caden Prather had a good game when he was in there healthy. He had a really nice touchdown. I talked about it. I thought they were going to take away Ty Felton a little bit, and Ty didn't get the entire game, but I thought that they definitely a lot of the defense was focused on him, and I thought Caden Prather could get going in that situation, and he absolutely did. And then Braden Wisłowski also stepped up with Prather, with Ty Felton out with the injury. I thought Wisłowski and Shalik Knotts both stepped up because we needed them to. We didn't have a lot of we didn't have a lot of our starting receivers later on in the game, and so those guys had to play it. I hadn't seen Wisłowski play a lot of receiver. I've seen him return kicks and all those different things, but I hadn't seen him play just outside, and I thought he looked good doing it. Same with Shalik Knotts, definitely a bright future. And then Ezekiel Abbott as well had to get involved. He had a reception for 13 yards. Michael Harris continues to look good. In total, had 10 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. So he continues to look like a player for Maryland football. I said it before the game. I thought he has a chance to be a really good linebacker. But yeah, he recorded a team high 10 tackles. I feel like that's got to be his career high. And a tackle for loss, and he forced a fumble. I almost forgot. And he was their highest graded Maryland player, 89.9 according to PFF. And Hippolyte and Wheatland also were effective. And so I think guys definitely looked good for the Terps. So there was definitely some standouts, not a ton, but definitely a couple of guys that played well. And so I liked how Maryland looked in terms of the linebacker room. I thought the linebacker room overall was definitely a standout, but I still think that there's a lot of stuff that has to get better everywhere. I think the main 2 bright spots were the rushing room and the linebacker room, and the receivers. Some of the backups stepped up when we didn't expect them to. And so I think those are kind of our couple of our few bright spots that did end up playing pretty good football, which we needed to stay in that game. So a lot of guys stepped up. The injury bug has hit a little bit for sure for the Terps. Preston Howard out, Ty Felton out later in the game, Caden Prather getting nicked up. We've had a lot of different injuries starting to come about, but that's football, man. That's just what it is overall. But guys stepped up, even though it was a loss. There was definitely some bright spots to take away. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.